My question for you, we're gonna look. You like how we're just jumping right in. There's no pleasantries.
Is it the same questions or are they
No,
new?
it is. Okay, well, I'm just gonna explain something to anyone watching this. I did an interview with Kevin. It was a great interview, probably 90 minutes, and then I didn't have any sound on it. So that's kind of true to form for me. I'm like that. I'm sloppy. Anyway, no, it's not the same questions. I just
Oh,
went
okay.
through and just sort of, just kind of, just did a stream of conscience. Um, I don't think I ever asked you this. How'd you get into playing drums?
Um, my younger brother had a. My parents bought him like a kit from I think like the Sears catalog or something when I would have been 13 or 14, so he would have been like 10. Um, and I wasn't interested in it. I was originally interested in playing bass. I wanted to be Steve Harris from Iron Maiden. But so the my room was bigger than his, so the drums resided in my bedroom, and so I would just noodle around on them all the time. And so when I joined the guys from Headfirst, um, I joined as guitar player. So it was two guitars, it's me and Mike.
I
And
never knew
I
that.
don't.
I never knew that it was you on guitar too. I never knew that.
Yeah, the very first demo, it's Mike and I on guitar, and we're in like different speakers, and then this guy Mike Goodman played drums. The guy we went to Woodbridge High School with, and then he quit because he moved to San Luis Obispo, and went to college, I think. So we searched forever to find somebody to play drums, and I think like at one point we were maybe the guy from Pushed Aside was going to join us, but I think he decided he wanted to stick with Pushed Aside instead of us because they did a demo and we had nothing. Um, so out of desperation, I just said, "Look, my brother's got a drum kit. I can keep a beat. Like, I'll play drums for a while and let's just see where it goes, and maybe we'll get somebody and I'll move back to guitar and maybe it'll work out." So I basically learned to play um, just while being in the band. So I think when we recorded our second demo, which would have been I think 1989, I think I'd been playing for all of maybe 3 or 4 months. So it's really sloppy. Um, and it wasn't like it wasn't Rush. So so it wasn't like all that complicated. But yeah, that's how I did it. It was just we couldn't get anybody to join our band, so I was just like, I'll do it.
How did Dan know when you guys did 411 that you were a guitar player? Because I remember Dan saying that in an interview. Because I need to redo it with Dan because I recorded him with no sound
Same
too.
thing.
Oh yeah. Oh, I have like three or four, Kevin. Trust me. When I screw up, I don't just screw up in one. It carries over until I realize my mistake.
Yeah.
How did he know? Like, how would he have seen you play guitar and been like, "Hey, he's a guitar player"?
I really don't know. I mean, it was so long ago. My guess is that when I first moved out of my parents' house and I moved into what would become known as the Fat House, which was a bunch of people living in this one house. Um, I would record stuff on um, Mike from Headfirst 4 track. I would just borrow it from him. And so I would record the drums with like one microphone in the dining room, and then I would get my little practice amp and my guitar, and I'd do the guitar over that. The way I remember it was I mean, I want to say that Dan must have heard something that I recorded. Because I think I think we were hanging out together and um, before we even thought about like being in a band together. So he must have heard that at some point. Um, that's the only thing I can imagine. I honestly I don't remember how
Gotcha.
that happened.
And then did Headfirst form out of you being in high school with those guys? Like, did you know them well? Had you been hanging out with those guys, or just?
I didn't know them at all. I had just moved to California from Tennessee, and I had biology class with Aaron, and just I was wearing like I think it was a DRI shirt, and Aaron was like, "Oh, cool, you like DRI? Like we should hang out." And
You had the long hair,
got,
right? You had like the long.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I had like the long hair, and I had it like shaved on one side, like I was trying to be the dude from Voivod.
Okay.
I thought it was a really cool hair. So we started hanging out, and he said like, I'm in this band, and we're looking for a second guitar player. Are you interested? And I was like, yeah, totally, because I was. And I had never been in a hardcore band. And so the first practice that we had was the first time I met Drew, John, Mike, and a few other guys that were. I think one of the Goodsons was there. But that was the very first time I met any of them. And
where did you guys practice?
Oh, kind of all over the place. But that one was that would have been at Kenny's house, I think. I don't remember Kenny's last name.
Is this all like in Irvine, Woodbridge kind of area?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was like various garages and that sort of thing. And eventually we would practice at, there was like a rec center in Irvine that was near, there was University High School, there was Woodbridge High School, and then there was the other high school that I don't remember the name of, but it was by there. And they had rooms that you could rent. And so we would practice there, but we would do it in my parents' living room and Aaron's garage, anywhere that we could. No PA ever.
Right.
Like John was screwed in that department. It was always a gamble. And, he had to just kind of figure out what he was doing in his head. But yeah.
When you guys went in and you guys recorded, because the first 7-inch, because there was only one. There was Back in Control, right?
Back in Control was the first 7-inch. There were two 7-inches that we.
Oh well, yeah. I'm okay. Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we're gonna get to the other one. But when you went and you record Back in Control, like, I mean, because you're you're not a guy that ever seems like he's overly stoked or excited about anything. No, you're just like, you're just very, very level headed. I find it rather enjoyable to be around. What is your thought going in and recording that? Like, just like, are you thinking, oh gosh, we're gonna do this, and then hopefully we can take our place amongst all the other great 7-inches that have come before us? Or okay.
I was just very excited with the idea that we were going to. I think I was most excited that we were going to have a recording that you could tell what was happening.
Okay.
It just didn't sound like a muffled mess, And I was also really excited that just that we were going to be in a studio, and so I had this idea that it was just going to be us playing live in a room with a bunch of mics above us. I had no idea how it worked. And so when Jim Dotson set me up, this was like the old For the Record studio, so it was very tiny.
Was it For the Record, or was that South Coast Studios?
Sorry, yeah, it was South Coast. Yeah, South Coast. Yeah, you're right.
Well, I only remember because you and I were there for the ice, and I remember just being so stoked that you were there. Like, oh my gosh, he's gonna be and he's gonna help out. So yeah.
So at South Coast, yeah, I remember thinking we would perform as a band, but he set the drums up in what was essentially like a bedroom, because it was in a converted house, and the rest of the guys were way off on the other side. I couldn't see him. It was just I could hear him in the headphones. And then he starts putting all the mics on the drums, and I'm like, how am I supposed to play with all of these contraptions around? He's like, oh, we'll figure it out. And so then I was terrified, And so, I mean, I don't know if anybody else can hear it, but I can hear on the record like my sticks hitting the mic because I'm like this all over the place. So it'd be like, and you'd hear like a kind of sound, which is me hitting the mic instead of the drums. It's just terrible. I suddenly became so frightened by all of this. Like, oh, like they can't see what I'm doing, and they're just going to record me first. Great.
Was there any when you guys did your 12-inch after that, the enemy, was it intentional to? I mean, because those things sound fairly different from one another. Was that the intention? And then I guess I should ask before this, like, so John doesn't have a PA. You can't hear what he's saying. When you guys finally heard what he was doing, was it like, oh, that's awesome, or oh, that's what you're doing?
I think it was a little of both.
Okay.
But your first question was, I think what you're asking was, did we mean for it to sound like a really slick rock record?
Yeah, the enemy.
Definitely did.
Okay.
In me, I in particular, I was very interested in getting the drums to sound like the third Prong album, which I think had just come out, and the drummer was this guy Ted Parsons. He was in Swans and a few other bands, like there were not metal bands, and so he came from like this kind of like industrial no wave kind of background, and the drums on that third record, the major label one, they're so heavily triggered. They just sound like, and I just thought it was the coolest thing. So I wanted it to sound like that, and I know Mike had just this big board full of effects, and then we started playing around with like synthesizers to get like various sounds and bells and hammers and all that, and the whole time we were like, yeah, this record's going to bum out a lot of people, which we kind of thought was kind of fun. But yeah, John's vocals, we had live recordings of him doing the songs that would go on the record, but in a live setting, he's jumping around, he's really getting into it, he's got the crowd kind of amping him up. So it didn't really sound all that different than on Back in Control. And then so when he was trying to go into that higher range and he was trying to carry like melodies and everything, I don't know that we thought it was awesome as much as we just thought,
right,
this is different. But I remember thinking again, this is going to bum out a lot of people. I think it's pretty cool, and I think this works better than if he was just continuing to kind of do like a hardcore yelling and screaming.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong. Hardcore yelling and screaming for that 12-inch does not work, right? Like it's.
I wouldn't think so. No.
Right.
Yeah.
Are there?
I mean, I don't. It's not a hardcore record. I mean, I think Headfirst was a hardcore band, but that's not a hardcore record.
Well, which leads me to on that record, like I'm like in on all the songs. I'm like, oh, this is great, this is great, this is great. Are there like one or two that you look at on that specific record, The Enemy, the 12-inch, that you're like, oh, I really like the way, like I'm stoked. Like I'm stoked that we created that. And you could do more than that. You could say more than that, or I don't know, maybe you have none.
There's bits and pieces. The first song, Mind a Man, I like. I think I like that entire song. Then
that's also a great song to open. Like honestly, it's a great record opener. Like it has everything that you want. I believe to get people into like, okay, wow, okay, this is what we're gonna be listening to tonight.
I agree. I don't think any other song would have worked better as an opener. My favorite part of that is we did a few different takes of it, and the one that we settled on, it I mean, you don't hear it because we edited it out, but I click in and then I just start on the hi hat. There's no cymbal. Like, and a lot of times when you have this big, the whole band starts, it's like, and for whatever reason, I thought, like, what if I don't do the cymbal and I just start quiet with the, and so it's got this weird kind of clipped kind of sound, and I really like that.
Yeah,
This,
it literally just starts. Like
yep,
it just starts. Yeah.
yeah. Um, there's, but yeah, the rest of the record, there's bits and pieces that I like. The opening riff to Driving the Salt, I always thought was one of Mike's best.
Yeah.
The
That,
song itself, I think, is okay. A lot of the songs are just, they're just too long.
why the bell before Now Who's Alone? I always wondered because it like the beginning, the lead up to that with the bell. For an odd reason, I think of a Little House on the Prairie-esque feel, and I think of a bell sort of auto. Like, what was your? Was it just, hey, we can do it, so we're doing it, or
Pretty much.
okay, that's right.
It was. I'm sure it was one of us was just farting around with whatever keyboard was in there, and we were like, "Ooh, cool," and just slap that on there. I mean, there's another song. Um, I think it's Unkind, where there's like a hammer sound that's in it. Same thing, just like, ooh, that sounds neat. Let's what can we do with that?